Hello viewers, welcome back. I mentioned that the previous movie was a little slower, so I expected this one to pick up speed. And did it ever? I almost don't even know where to start. I mean, as a longtime Digimon fan, I've loved every step of this journey so far, but Confession really blew me away, and you can expect spoilers once again as we dive into it. So, once again, we pick up right where the last movie left off, with the school festival wrapping up. I know I mentioned it a little in my review for the last movie with Joe's story, but it is really interesting to me, seeing the kids trying to manage their everyday lives alongside their responsibilities as Digidestined. We saw it a little in the original series, but it really wasn't long before Myotismon had taken over and they could focus solely on that threat. In Tri, the threat is still firmly anchored in the digital world, and the kids only have to worry about it when an infected Digimon appears in their world. It was one of the things that made the first two movies a little slow at times, interesting as it is. But though Meicoomon has gone back to the digital world, it's now raised the idea that the other Digimon partners could be susceptible to the infection too. Izzy all but barricades himself in his office, trying to track down what's causing the infection. He created a little digital space in his computer, at first just to have a place to store the Digimon when they were at school, but now they're using it as a way to quarantine them. I had my suspicions about this space from the moment it was brought up. After all, Meicoomon spent time there with them. If the infection is already there, it's not so safe after all. And while it's not exactly confirmed outright, Joe and TK go to visit their partners, and Patamon starts showing signs of being infected after just 5 minutes or so. Each movie has highlighted two of the Digidestined more than the others. Like, the first one was mostly about Matt and Tai, and the second focused more on Joe and Mimi. Confession focuses a little on all of them, but if I had to pick a main character, this is definitely TK's story more than anyone else's. TK has always been one of my favorite characters. He's very laid back and easy to like. He wields the crest of hope, and the crests are meant to show the Digidestined's greatest strengths, but they each have a weakness too, like Mimi being a little too sincere and that getting in the way of her teamwork sometimes. Confession explores TK's weakness a little. His optimism kind of blends into denial. He goes from just trying not to worry about the possibility of infection, to hiding Patamon away and pretending everything's fine once he realizes the infection's already spread. I know I skipped right into the character discussion in this one, but I think TK's character story was handled really well in this movie, especially because they tried to play out a storyline a little like this in Zero 2, where TK kind of went off the deep end because he was afraid of losing Patamon again, but the whole thing was pretty rushed and out of character. His reactions here are a little more subdued, but they feel a lot more real. Anyway, while TK's trying to hide Patamon's infection and Izzy works frantically to find the source of the infection, their world is still being plagued with technological problems. Pretty soon, messages start popping up on everyone's computers, warning them that they're too dependent on their technology, and the Digimon will take over. This is followed by a scene I really liked, where the Digimon all meet up to see if there's anything they can do to help. The Digimon have always been simple creatures, motivated mostly by food. They don't really have any agency on their own, and most of them don't have distinct personalities. They exist to be an endless well of support for their partners, so I like to see them taking action here, discussing their options if the infection did spread. But they're interrupted by Kari, who's been possessed by a being known as homeostasis. Its job is pretty self-explanatory. It exists to keep the digital world stable. She warns them that the infected Digimon are threatening not just their two worlds, but countless others as well, and if things go on, they'll all be destroyed, and that their time will be up when Meicoomon re-emerges. Kari had been possessed in the past by the essence of the digital world. I don't think this is the same entity, though neither one has been explored much as of right now. though I hope they do tackle that eventually. Being the Digidestined of Light, she's always kind of walked this tightrope of being the most susceptible to darkness and having the greatest power to fight it. Kari hasn't had her focus movie yet, so I guess there's still hope. Anyway, homeostasis loses its grip on her right before she can tell them how to defeat this threat, and Himekawa shows up to try and fill in the pieces. Speaking of, I'll have to break into character discussion again because I haven't said much about the two government agents yet in either of my reviews, and honestly, they've gotten almost as much screen time as Mako. I know I touched a little on Nishijima, the one who's moonlighting as their teacher. There's not actually much more to say about him. He seems to have a good heart and always has the kids' best interests in mind. The other one is Himekawa, his childhood friend, who's a little shadier. She's been known to keep information from them, if not straight out lie to them, and my adult brain is telling me that she could still have their best interests in mind. It is kind of irresponsible to put that kind of weight on the shoulders of a bunch of teenagers, but the child in me felt it was a great injustice. The government is about 5 years too late to be telling them they're too young to be involved. Anyway, two of those secrets she's keeping happen to be that they already know Meikumon was the source of the infection, not just another victim, and that Ken, as well as many other Digidestined around the world, have gone missing recently. After Kari collapses, Himekawa tells the Digimon about her organization's plan. If Izzy can't find a way to stop the infection before Meikumon appears again, they plan to reboot the digital world completely, revert it back to the way it was before the infection. But there's a catch, of course. The Digimon would be rebooted too, and they would lose all their memories. Which, as I'm sure you could imagine, led to a really emotional movie, and that's the part that really impressed me. It's not like I wasn't excited for the last two. There was a lot of nostalgia early on, and it brought me a special kind of joy to see these old characters brought back to life, and characterized well on top of that. I really wasn't expecting them to continue to grow the way they have, but I will say it's been a little harder to be as excited for this particular plot, which rests really heavily on the shoulders of a bunch of new characters. It's not that I don't like Mako. As I mentioned in my last review, it's just a little hard to be really invested in her in the presence of all these older characters that we know and love. Confession is the movie that made it feel like this is everyone's story. There were a lot of really heartfelt moments, not just Mako trying to deal with her lost partner. Once the idea of a total reboot has been proposed, there are a bunch of quiet moments with the kids and their Digimon, showing off their individual bonds, but only the Digimon know at this point that they may be saying goodbye soon. I think the most striking scene in the whole movie is one where Patamon confronts TK about how he already knows he's infected. Patamon is always just so cute and innocent, and he says it so simply, telling TK that what's really important is that they enjoyed the time they've already spent together. It's no exaggeration to say this movie had me on the verge of tears multiple times. And on a related note, the music was really at the top of its game in this movie. Anyway, it's not long before another distortion appears between the worlds, and Meikumon makes another appearance. Despite all his hard work, Izzy still doesn't have any answers, and as the fight goes on, more and more of the Digimon succumb to infection. Izzy does manage to create a digital cube where the Digimon could potentially be stored and kept safe during the reboot, and Tentamon digivolves to his megaform for the first time, but it's not enough to save them, and the Digimon partners all get caught up in the reboot as well. And it's really interesting to think that there were originally only supposed to be 3 movies. I wonder how much of the original story changed, if maybe the Digiworld being rebooted like the kids' adventures had never happened was supposed to be the end. That would be one way to allow them all to move on with their lives. At least, I thought that was how this movie was going to end, but then the sad scenes of the Digidestined trying to get back to their regular lives keep dragging on. and thankfully they don't leave us hanging. The kids decide to take matters into their own hands and find their own way back to the digital world, which was just as emotional and empowering as it sounds, and was definitely one of those scenes that almost brought me to tears. Happy, nostalgic tears for once. And a few events at the very end left me with a lot of questions, which I guess falls into continuity. Kind of. But I'm sure you've already noticed that I kind of abandoned my format for this movie's review. For one, I have to wonder about the logic behind some of it. I could understand the Digimon not remembering their past adventures, but not remembering or being aware of their partners at all seems a little suspect to me, and this is one of the reasons I'm really interested to see what they do with the character homeostasis, because stability is not the same thing as justice, and the original digital world may have been free from this infection, but it had its own share of problems. I mean, the Digidestined were part of a prophecy to save the world. There was always some evil involved. And if I remember correctly, the Digimon were created specifically to work with their human partners to combat this evil. If the Digimon still exist in this rebooted digital world, everything else should too, by my logic anyway, which raised some more questions about whether they'd have to fight all their old enemies again. But though that would be an interesting storyline, we're also given quite a few hints right off the bat that the reboot may not have happened as perfectly as they suspected. When they find the Digimon, they're playing with the old whistle Kari used to carry around, the one she left behind when they went their separate ways the first time. And then there's the cliffhanger, of course. At the very end, Himekawa appears in the digital world too, and she seems to be working with the Digimon Emperor, who was apparently Geni in disguise this whole time. I can't even begin to guess what this could mean for the story, just that it's probably safe to say the reboot was purposely imperfect. But the kids are back in the Digiworld, and we've still got 3 more movies to go. Digimon Tri has gotten consistently better with each installment, and I'm as excited as ever to see what comes next. Thank you for watching.